Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live stream with CoMo Comic Books. I know this may seem weird. It's weird for me. I haven't been on in a while, so thank you for joining. Um, just got some end of year stuff to knock out tonight. Just want to catch up and let everybody know what's going on. I do have a little bit of agenda, which seems a little nerdy, but I'm going to go with it. So kind of hang with me, if you will. I see we got some people in the chat. Mark Slack says, wow, 10K. Thanks for being here, Mark. Swaggle Haas just popped in. Yeah, I do like the green light. Green does happen to be my favorite color. So we're serious tonight. We got GT Key Comics in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for hopping in. Like I said, just some things I wanted to get out there tonight. Some housekeeping stuff. And, while I'm blabbing about it, I might as well just let you know. Here's what we're looking at. So the agenda for tonight, we're going to talk about my top 10 pickups of 2022. I know that's a cool thing to do this time of the year, so I figured why not share with you guys some of the things that I picked up last year. If you follow me on IG, you may recognize some of these, but maybe you get a little story or context to go with some of the things I picked up. Also going to go through my 2023 want list. Now, this isn't really a checklist for me. It's just kind of a wish list because there's no way in heck I can afford all the things that are going to be on this list. So you guys know me. I'm kind of opportunistic, whatever I can get that presents itself. So be some fun things in there. After that, we're going to talk about the 10K giveaway. That's right. We are almost there. We are at 9535 last I looked. So 9,535 subs on the channel right now. Crazy. Never expected anything like this when I started the channel. And the crazy thing to think about that even is we're coming up on the 3rd anniversary of the CoMo Comic Books YouTube channel. So it doesn't seem possible that, we've been doing this for 3 years already, but happy to be here. Glad to have you guys with me. And the last thing, if you were on Swag Stream last night, this kind of came up in passing at one point, but I've been holding back from you guys. I haven't been completely sharing everything. I bought a massive collection at the end of last year. I haven't really said anything about it publicly. So tonight, I grabbed a small sampling of books from that. As you can tell from the title, 17K, it was over 17,000 books in this collection. So it's a big one. But trust me, we're not going to go through 17,000 comics tonight. I just got some of the highlights, and then later on, we'll get some full-fledged content out about it. So that's what we're looking at doing tonight. I'm going to hop back over to the comments, see what's happening over there. Bright New Age pops in here, said, great channel. Thank you, Bright New Age. I appreciate that. Thank you for stopping by. I know Sunday evenings can get a little crowded or whatever, but you gotta stream when you can stream. So glad that y'all are here. Raising Elm, thank you for hopping in here, man. Great member of the community there. Talking with him on IG quite a bit. Recycled Comics, thanks for stopping by. Same to you. 2023, it's going to be an interesting one. I've got a feeling. And to be caught up on the comments here, Alex says, awesome on that collection. I agree. It was a haul, but I'll get into that when we get there. I'm still kind of giddy about it. It's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that. So that's our agenda for the evening. If you have any questions, anything you want to chat about, feel free, throw it up in the chat, and we will talk about that. Q&A is fine. Basically, I just wanted to get out and check in, see how everybody's doing, do a little hangout. We can do some Q&A. And then as the thumbnail said, we got a little bit of business to deal with here. So, we'll hopefully go for around an hour somewhere along those lines. Depends on how chatty I get. You guys know sometimes I intend to stream for an hour, and the next thing you know, I'm peeling myself out of the chair 3 hours later. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about my 2022 pickups. So all in all, before we get into the top 10 specifically, just last year, I'll kind of give you a little summary. 2022 was kind of a weird year for me. A lot of really my personal wants or things I thought I wanted to get, things I was chasing, what have you, they kind of got put on the back burner because Como just had a lot of opportunities to buy a lot of books. I spent well into the five figures on collections last year, bought upwards of, I don't even know, somewhere between 20 and 25,000 comics last year. Best I can just kind of ballpark it. So Drew kind of took a back seat because Como was just going crazy. Now, that said, sometimes you buy collections and you kind of get high on your own supply a little bit. I peel a little of this, a little of that out, and you'll see some of that in here. But that's kind of 2022 in a nutshell. I didn't buy anything crazy. I wouldn't say there was anything that was like Grails level that I picked up, but I bought some really cool stuff that's been on my want list for a while, and I think you'll see some of that as we get into some more specifics. So I just kind of did some summary pages. We got 2 slides to cover here. First up, as you can see, is Vault of Horror 35, which this is a book I talk about quite a bit. So let me get her on camera here. I've had this one for a while. And a copy of this issue for a while. But the thing about this particular copy is it's an upgrade. So last spring, a local auction house had an auction. They got an original owner, or well, maybe not original, but they had a massive EC collection that they picked up out of St. Louis. And when I say massive, I mean basically everything short of the first 3 or 4 issues of every new trend EC title was in here. And there were duplicates of some of this stuff. Like, when was the last time you looked at a collection that had 2 Crime Suspense 20s, 2 Crime Suspense 22s, the most gorgeous Mad One I've ever seen in my life? It was just ridiculous. And a lot of the prices of this auction reflected the level of the books that they were. I was able to scratch out a few, but I actually sat down and did the math. This one collection sold for over $60,000 that night. It was just insane. But I was able to upgrade my Vault of Horror 35 and with a copy that came out of that collection. It presents really well. A press could get some of the non-color breaking, just like creases and indents and stuff out of it. But I don't know. I don't feel right slabbing ECs. I'll buy them slabbed, but I usually don't sub those. But happy to have upgraded this book. And if you don't know, it's a great holiday theme. Johnny Craig cover. Also, one of the stories in it, All Through the House, was one of the earliest, if not the first, EC story that was adapted for the Tales from the Crypt TV show. I'm a Johnny Craig guy. It was a no-brainer for me. It's one of my favorite EC covers. To kind of go with that as well, the next book, Web 118, this guy right here, it's a book I've had for a while. I'll be honest, not this exact copy, but I've had a Web 118 for over a decade. It took me longer to get one than I figured it would, honestly. But I nabbed this from a buddy of mine. He was selling it last, I think January is when I bought it. So I've had it for right at about a year. But it's a 9.6. It was a really good price. And, I think I paid $150 for it, something like that. But again, just a nice upgrade into the 9.6 white pages. I grew up during the Clone Saga era, so I kind of have a bit of a soft spot for those books, and I've always thought the Scarlet Spider costume design was just fantastic. So it was one of those books I wanted to have a really nice high grade copy of it slab. The raw one I have is pretty nice, but still, why not? Let's upgrade that. And if I want to hang it on the wall and look at it every once in a while, I can do that. Next on the list, this is a good example of where the weirdness starts. A of course, I grew up, I was born in the 80s, grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. Nintendo was life back in the day. If you guys weren't around, that's just the way it was. You played NES every opportunity you could. And then Super Nintendo, it just went on from there. But Nintendo Power was how we learned how to do things back before the internet was around. So it was always one of those things I kind of wanted to get. And, it's not the prettiest copy you'll ever see. It may be one of the ugliest copies you'll ever see. But my buddy Eric, who owns STL Comics over in St. Louis, had this come in. Everything's there. The posters there. The inserts are there. It's 100% complete, well read, well loved. Perfect copy for me because I generally don't get too hung up on condition. I would rather have one of everything than the best of anything. So having a 100% complete Nintendo Power #1 was just exactly the nostalgia trip I needed. I think I actually picked this up the same day that I picked up the Web 118. So that was a good day for me. Obviously, if two of the books I picked up that day make the top 10 and were, had the whole rest of the year to be knocked out of the top by other books. To kind of keep it going, as you can see there at number 7, we have Blip #1, which if you don't know what this is, Blip is actually it was put out by Marvel. It's a video game magazine, and it's the first comic book appearance of Mario. So it's a comic sized book. They actually do call it a magazine, but it was just back in those early days of video gaming where, the culture didn't really know where it was going to go, what it was going to do. But like I said, grew up on NES. Mario was life. So when I picked up a copy of that in St. Louis, I think it was last spring in a trade deal, I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to hang on to that. I think it was actually Mrs. CoMo that convinced me to hold on to Blip. Just, those member berries are strong when it comes to Mario and the NES life. Next book in our number 6 position here. It's a book I've been looking for a long time. I remember seeing it in an LCS, probably in the late aughts, 08, 09, something like that. It was one of those books that was just like, yeah, that's cool, but I didn't really care to drop the coin on it. And I don't know that I've seen a copy for sale since in person. So when I bought the 17K collection that we're going to talk about here in a bit, there's a lot of really interesting things in there. And one of those things was the complete first and second volumes of Aracell's Men in Black. So if you're wondering, yes, this is the same Men in Black that the Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith movie was ultimately adapted from or adjacent to. Just one of those really weird 80s, 90s kind of indie stories. Of course, the movie's coming out in the mid 90s like they did. I would love to have $1 for every time I've watched Men in Black or a Men in Black sequel. I could take the rest of the month off and be perfectly happy. So when I was flipping through that collection and we came across that, I probably embarrassed myself by some of the sounds that came out of me when I saw what that was. So super excited to have Men in Black #1 in the PC at this point. Now we're up to the top 5, and kicking off the top 5 is my birthday present to myself. I bought this last fall. This is Tales from the Crypt 33. Pardon the Mylar. It makes viewing a little tough. But this is from December 52, January 53. So this thing is 70 years old. Now, I didn't realize that until I just saw it. But what makes this particular issue special is it's the origin of the Crypt Keeper. It's a really weird story. You might have imagined that. But the title of the story is called Lower Birth. It was adapted for the TV show, and it's just as weird to watch it on television as it was to read it in a book. And it was also like one of the last 4 or 5 Tales from the Crypt issues I need. I think I'm down to 3 now. And they came up at a great price on eBay. I'm like, yeah, happy birthday to me. So the cool thing about this is when I bought that Vault of 435 in the spring, I took my undercopy and put it in the inventory for CoMo, and I sold it in Kansas City. Well, when I get this book in the mail, see if I can get it to focus in here, make it big for you. Oops. One more option. When I get this book in the mail, there's a note on it. It says, hey, I'm the guy who bought your Vault of 435 at Planet. So small world there, everybody. The comic community, we may be scattered out, but it's a small world when it really comes down to it. So what were the chances of that? But that was just kind of a cherry on top of that story. So that was pretty cool. Happy to have that book, and still hunting for those last couple of Tales from the Crypts when I can find them at the right time and right price. Next up, number 4. This is a pickup from Planet Comic-Con last year. There's a couple books like that. This is Kimiko Primer number 2. It's the first appearance of Grindel. Of course, he was created by Matt Wagner, and Wagner will tell you not to buy this book. Don't read this book. It's crap. It's just not worth your time. But I didn't care. I wanted one. And I actually had a really good buddy who was the manager and co-owner of my LCS, where I could basically cut my teeth in learning the comics game. And Grindel was his favorite character in the world. And unfortunately, right before I launched the channel, you could probably make the argument to say that I launched the channel because of this. We lost him in November of 2019. And ever since that happened, Kimiko Primer 2 was just a book I wanted to have in my collection in remembrance of him, essentially. Again, it didn't need to be the best presenting copy. It didn't need to be super high grade. And when a customer we have who comes to Kansas City every year always has the coolest stuff. If you go on my website, there's a picture of me holding a gobbledygook number 1. It's the same guy. He just has the coolest stuff. But we did a trade deal. I got that. I think a Ninja Turtles 2 second print for some Silver Age X-Men stuff. He was super happy. I was super happy. And yeah, it was a good trade. Good deal. Now, into the top 3. Sometimes you just put stuff out into the universe, and the universe acknowledges you. Sometimes you put it out and it just flips you the bird, whatever. Planet Comic-Con 2022 was one of those times that I got the nod. That primer that I just showed walked up. The number 3 book walked up. The number 2 book walked up. Just completely random. And I'll get into that. But the number 3 book is Maximum Carnage number 1, which you may recognize it. It's the same cover art as the video game. So whether you were playing this on SNES, Sega Genesis, I want to say it was even arcade for a while. This is the art. And it's actually Bill Sienkiewicz cover art. He painted the different characters and they just imposed them over that background shot. But this wasn't a book you could buy. This was a giveaway item that was supposed to come with the limited edition versions of these games. Well, this customer, this viewer on the channel, he was actually the first guy to ever ask me for my autograph after I started the channel. Really nice guy. Came up and he pulls out a stack of slabs from his book and he hands them to me. And it's a pile of these freaking Maximum Carnage number 1s. I've seen like 3 in my entire life. And this dude rolls up and he's like, oh, here you go. There's like this pile of slabs. I think he said he had 198, a couple 96s, some 94s, whatever. The story is he nabbed a stack of them as a kid from, I think it was Toys R Us. They were supposed to manage it. You buy a game, you get a copy. Well, they just left the copies laying there. He's like, well, I got that. And he held on to them all these years and finally decided to sub them and got all those great grades. So it was just a super awesome story. He did really well on the books. Plus, he got to keep one. I was floored, just super happy to finally have one. And really just at that point, I think this was the last book that just kind of fell into my lap at Planet Comic Con last year. So at that point, I was just, stick a fork in me. I'm done. Let's go home. It's not going to get any better. The one that just kind of made me laugh, as far as, the universe just giving on occasion, was the number 2 book. And that is the Marvel Resident Evil #1. It was a Capcom and Marvel co-effort. It was a giveaway. Obviously, it's free there. And it's just not a book I see very often. I love the Resident Evil video games. I would stay up till 2, 3 in the morning playing them all the time. I remember like Resident Evil 2 was the first game I ever actively awaited. Like I had the pre-order in. I was sitting there waiting for this game to come out, just like, chomping at the bit. So I've always wanted one of these books. I'd never seen one. I was sitting there having a conversation with my buddy Tom from MSG Comics. We always set up together at a lot of shows, but Planet especially. I'll be on one side of the end cap. He'll be on the other. We're all pals, our families, wives and stuff. We all hang out and have a good time. And we were just talking. I'm like, the book I'd like to get is Resident Evil #1. And I kid you not, 20 minutes later, he sent a guy over to my booth that had walked up and was like, "Hey, I want to sell this." I just look at him and I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Because I couldn't believe it. And obviously, I wanted the book, and the deal was good enough that I was going to do it for sure. And honestly, it's just something I don't see that often. I would have paid whatever, but I think it wound up being a pretty good deal regardless. So just that was kind of the third and final straw, or one of the 3 just unbelievable happenings at that show. So I left with some really great stuff, but not the stuff I went to the show with the intention of bringing home. Just absolutely crazy. And then my #1 pickup for 2022 is this Evil Ernie #1. Let me go ahead and get that back here. Of course, this is from Eternity Comics, created by Brian Pulido. First appearance of Evil Ernie. Got some trade tower action back there. First appearance of Evil Ernie. First appearance of Lady Death. And kind of the story with that one, why that book appeals to me, is in the 90s, before the internet was really a thing, we had Wizard magazine. Wizard loved some of these indie characters, just the small press stuff, the weird stuff that was coming out back in the day. And Evil Ernie and Lady Death were characters that just really caught my eye and stuck with me. And it's also not your run-of-the-mill stuff. Like, you don't come across Eternity Comics books every day. And I've seen a couple sets of Evil Ernie come through St. Louis or Kansas City or whenever, and I just never had the opportunity to get them. So this was one of the things when I first started talking with the owner of the 17K collection. I have it right here. We were on the phone and spent like 45 minutes on the phone. He's just reading through the different things that he had. And he started with The Walking Dead. Then we talked to TMNT. And the third thing he said was, I have Evil Ernie 1 through 5. All right. So I was literally 3 lines into being told what was in this collection. And I'm like, I'm in. Let's do this. So super, super happy to have that book. And of course, I've got the #2. I kept the whole set. Just really happy to have that. So there you have it. That's my top 10 from 2022. I could easily go and do some honorable mentions because I was just sitting here thinking while I was talking. I also picked up a Scud the Disposable Assassin #1 last May when I was in Tulsa. That's a book I've been after for forever. So again, it was one of those years where I didn't knock any grails off the list. I didn't land, like 4 or 5 figure book. I just got some really cool stuff that I've been looking for a while, and stuff that I enjoy. And I think that's ultimately what it's all about. These top 10 lists don't have to be a flex of my grail for the year's bigger than your grail. I think that's one of the things we just need to focus on moving forward as we come out of this crazy, just like boom cycle of, where comics have been the last couple of years. Just getting back, who gives a crap what somebody says about the stuff you enjoy? If you enjoy it, you're excited that you found it. That's what's important. So that's my top 10. And stay tuned, because we're going to head over to my top 10 want list for 2023 just after this. But first, let's hit the chat. I see some bright colors here. My guy, Raisin Elm Comics, drops the super chat. He says, just wanted to show my support, Drew. Hope all is well, dude. And I'm blown away. Thank you so much. You have the distinction of being the first ever super chat, super sticker, super thanks, anything here on the CoMo Comic Books channel. So Raising Elm, thank you so much. I am eternally grateful. Honestly, I don't know what to do with that. Hopefully YouTube just takes care of it and I don't have to do anything. But that's great. I really appreciate it. And of course, one of the things with the channel, I don't like to ask you guys for money. Support, in my mind, hit the like button, share the videos, drop a comment, tell people to subscribe if they watch the videos and they're not subscribed. That's all I really hope for in doing this. But if you enjoy what I'm doing here enough to throw some my way, I'm forever grateful. Thank you so much for that. And things are, well, just insane. As I'll get to a little bit later. If you heard last night, got shows coming up, got lots to do to get ready for those. So that's kind of the life we're living right now. So thank you again, Raising Elm, for that. Catching back up with the rest of the chat. Looks like Jason Salazar popped in as we were just getting going. Phil, hello. How are you, sir? I know Swag loves that Vault 35. So thank you for stopping by. Man, we streamed last night for a couple hours, and then so it was myself, Automatic Comics on Swaggle Hoss's channel last night. If you didn't catch it, we streamed for like 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that. We were on after we stopped the stream for another 3 hours. It was, I think it was like 2:10 Eastern time for Ryan, 1:10 for me. Just insane, but it was great to catch up. And getting ahead of myself, talking about 3 years and just the community. It's amazing the people you meet doing this. We have an Instagram DM chat room, and chances are, I think I said it last night, most of what we talked about on the live, we would have talked about it, just would have been typed out. So it's just cool to get together and to be able to hang out with your friends. I purposely phrase things to where Mrs. CoMo makes fun of me for talking about my internet friends or my YouTube friends or whatever, but it's good times. So if you were on that chat on that stream last night, thank you for hanging out then. Thank you for hanging out now. Hopefully we're helping you enjoy the weekend a little bit. ME Comics says hello, welcome, sir, or madam, whoever, whatever. Tartan Fandom says he's a little late. That's fine. I am perpetually late for everything, so no worries there. You bought a blip off the stands? That's awesome. They are hard to find. I'm going to say I've picked up a 3 and a 4 out of some collection that was being blown out at a show I was at. I missed the 2, so going to have to track one of those down. But I think it's 3 has a Spider-Man cover, which is kind of random and cool for me as a Spider-Man fan. All right, let's see. We're scrolling. We got Papa Kin Comics. What's up, man? Thanks for stopping by. Glad to see you. Circumstances, man, I love his reels. They're so funny. Good stuff. And he's also a local guy, KC guy, so we'll have to catch up at the show for sure. You played Resident Evil in the dark with a crowd? Man, I was selling myself short. That's pretty awesome. And I agree. I wish Wizard or something like that existed, but I don't know how you do that in today's world. Like, how can you be relevant when by the time you get to press, actually physically get the books made and then distributed, whatever you're talking about is, weeks, if not months old at that point. Maybe there's some editorial there. And even like from a price guide standpoint, even being, and I say price guide loosely because Wizards wasn't the best, but it was something. It was more up to date than Overstreet. Even a month or 6 weeks or however long it takes to turn and burn some of those, you're still kind of behind. But it would be cool to see some sort of a comic book lifestyle or comic book industry magazine that was relevant again. Oh, let's see here. Alex says Wizard was one of the best mags of all time, including the ash cans. Those 1/2s and ash cans, yeah, the giveaways. I mean, I think that was my introduction to swag, was like stuff swag, not swag all hoss, was Wizard, because you never knew what the hell was going to be in that bag every month. It could be a trading card. It could be a little mini comic. Usually it was an offer to send them money for more junk, but whatever. All right. Yep. Got that one. Comic Toby says this is high definition video. We are streaming at 720p because with StreamYard, if you want to go full 1080p, it's like $50 freaking a month, which, I mean, I love you guys. I pay for the $25 a month so we can, be high def technically, but not streaming and paying 25 sucks. Not streaming and paying 50 is just dumb. So I'm going to stick with the 25, but thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment on how the shot works or how the shot looks. So we'll go with that. Circumstances, facts, opinions don't matter. Right on. Gen X Geek says, greetings. He's back to collecting once again, on and off since the 80s. Well, it's not a bad time to get back in. I would say it's better than the last couple of years just because it was such a crazy time. Things were so overblown. We're getting back down to where things should be, right? It's not cheap by any means. But I don't know that comics really, when you're talking vintage comics, collectible comics, they've never really been cheap. We look at 1980 prices like, oh, you could get an AF-15 for $3K. What the hell? What? That's awesome. Of course, then you don't think that, back then the minimum wage was like, what, $2 an hour or something like that. $3K was a crap ton of money back then. So it's all relative, I guess. Sorry, double tap there. I'm torn on what to do here. I received another super chat, but it has inappropriate language in it. And okay, hell, I'll just put it on here briefly. I'm not reading it at all, but thank you, Circumstances. I appreciate the profanity you have posted within this comment section. And now it's gone. Thank you. I appreciate the $10 though, very much so, sir. Thank you so much. And look me up when you're in KC, or when we're in KC for Planet. We should hang out a little bit if I can get some yard time and hit the floor or something and just see what's good. All right. Alex says, got the ball rolling. Absolutely. That note taken. I'm not going to be out here soliciting super chats, but I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Yeah, I mean, there's just no respect. None whatsoever. It's like internet friends are real friends. Steve Bradley says, hi, thank you for stopping in. Late night, congrats on the pickups. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for the comments. I'm just going to try and scroll through a little bit here and see if we can get caught up some. Yeah, I agree. Tartan Phantom. They definitely were optimistic. But then, I the fact they didn't have ranges, it was all just near men or whatever. I look at some of those and I'm just like, it makes me sick. I respect the super chat. I don't respect the content within the super chat. How about that? But no, seriously, thank you so much. So I did scroll past a few comments. So if I skipped your comment, all apologies. I will go back and check those out. But thank you all so much for hanging out. I want to go ahead and get to the next portion of our agenda here. And that is, if I can click the right buttons. Next topic, we've got my top 10 wish list for 2023. So same format as the top 10 pickups of 2022, only now we're looking forward. What are the things I hope to find this year? Some of them aren't too bad, really. Some of them are god awful, and that's just the truth. But I think it's a good thing when you're putting together a wish list. It's great to have big stretch goals on there. It's great to have more attainable goals. It's good to have things that maybe price prohibitive a little bit, that's the stretch. And then also things that are availability restrictive, where it's something you got to hunt for. It's not something you just stroll into every show and find. I think just being able to chase a variety of different things to where you can put your energy in over here. When you get burnt out on that, you can, chase this thing over there. Just being able to pivot and stay fresh and not getting, burnout or disenfranchised when that one thing, the precious you can't get your hands on, I think helps you be a healthier collector. It keeps you from getting beat down and demoralized within the hobby. So that's kind of what I'm thinking first off. And I'm looking, I think I messed my numbering up, but that's okay. It'll be fine. We'll get through it. Number one, Darkwing Duck. Number one. It's actually kind of a hard book to find. The thing with that is it's a kid's comic, right? You don't give anything to a kid. I don't care if it's a concrete block that you expect to get back in the same shape you gave it to them in. I don't have kids, but from what I understand, they're dirty, they smell funny, and they destroy things. I mean, I have dogs. They kind of do the same stuff. But when it comes to collectible paper that's gone through the hands of a child, you're kind of hard pressed to find really nice looking copies of some of these things. But I did grow up in that Disney after school, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, that whole world was that of my younger days. So the nostalgia for Tailspin and Darkwing Duck is real for me. And I'm not ashamed to admit I have gone back and watched some of the episodes on Disney Plus since that was a thing. No shame in my game when it comes to the Darkwing Duck. So hopefully I can find that one this year. Number two, this one's kind of weird. It's not my usual bag, really. And honestly, I don't really know that much about it, but Dawn was another one of those characters, kind of like She and Evil Ernie and Scud, that was really hot in the Wizard top 10s or hot 10s back in the day. And it's just always one of those things that I'm like, why not? It's cool. It just sticks out to me in my mind. And it's another one of those things that's not readily available. I've seen maybe a couple of them over the years. But a lot of that small press stuff you just don't see. It's not nearly as available as your Big Two or your Image or, the copious amounts of Valiant that are out there sitting in boxes just looking for good homes like sad puppies. But Cry for Dawn, number one, is the first appearance of Dawn. Dawn #1 is the much more prevalent issue from Serious Comics. You can find that pretty easy. I think it's only like a $5 book, but this Cry for Dawn #1, which is her actual first appearance, is a bit more valuable book. It's usually somewhere around 150 and 200 bucks when I see it. And if you're into kind of that high fantasy art, I mean, I would say it's moderately exploitative as far as her action hero garb. I don't think that's what I'd wear into battle, but you got like some demons and stuff happening there. It's kind of crazy. So I'm down with that. So yeah, Cry for Dawn, #1, #2 on the list. #3, this is probably one of the first stretch books, just because it's not one you come across a lot, and that's Strange Tales 89. It's the first appearance of Fing Fang Foom. So this is a pre-hero Atlas book. Of course, we would get the Human Torch would start his own series in issue 101, so about a year after this one came out. But at this point in time, Strange Tales is just like a sci-fi, just random story anthology book. You usually have 3 or 4 stories inside, and this one just happened to be that of Fing Fang Foom. It's been on a bit of a trajectory in the last couple of years, but I think it's starting to come back down to where it's not just completely terrible. But still, even with some of the give back, it's a book that if you have it, you can kind of set your price to a certain extent. You don't have to put the FMV on it if you necessarily want to, just because a lot of times, if you're the guy in the room with one, you're the only guy in the room with one. It's not one of those books that you're going to walk into a show, like a ASM 300 or something like that, where you're going to have multiple copies to choose from. So Strange Tales 89, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but it's my #3 wish for this year. My #4 book is Captain America 100. Honestly, I can't believe I haven't bought a collection that has one of these in it yet. I cannot tell you how many Doctor Strange 169s, Captain Marvel 1s, Iron Man 1s, literally every other one of these big premiere issue books that came out was like April or May of 68. I've had, no kidding aside, half dozen copies or more of every one of them. I've never had a single Captain America 100. And I don't know why. I've owned more Tales of Suspense 99s than I have Captain America 100s. And I realized saying I had none, that's a pretty low bar to cross. But no, I've had again another handful of TOS 99s. I don't know what the deal is. This book avoids me like the plague, so sooner or later I'll find one and we'll add it to the collection. And lastly, #5, so the rounding out the top half or the first half of my want list for 2023 is Vault of Horror #12. It's the first EC horror book. And us EC guys, we love to qualify all this crap. So Vault of Horror 12 was the first issue published as a horror title by EC. There had been horror stories in previous books, but those were crime books. So those stories did well enough. They're like, all right, let's go all in on this. So Vault of Horror 12 is that first horror book. It's not the greatest cover. It is Johnny Craig, but compared to some of the stuff he'd be churning out, 3 and 4 years later, this thing's pretty mild. It's just, a guy who might get pulled apart by a medieval torture device. That's not bad. It's not like he's cutting anybody's head off. But one of the books that almost made my top 10 list of books I picked up in 2022 was Vault of Horror 12. Vault of Horror 13 is one of my favorite issues I've had for a while. So 12 is kind of the direction I'm heading in to just round out those earliest issues of Vault of Horror. All right. Now, #6 spot is incredibly vague. I want a 9.2 ASM slab. What's that mean? Well, one of the things I've been doing since I finished the ASM run. So I have Amazing Spider-Man 1 through whatever the most recent issue is. I have all of them. But one of the things I've been doing is I want to go back and I want to build a high grade set of 1 through 100. Now, high grade is relative. When you're in the lower numbers, like 1 through 5, I want like a 6.0, and then 6 through 20, I want 8.0s. 21 to 100, I want 9.2 copies of every ASM book. And I've got quite a few, but it's been a little while since I bought one. So, like, here's an example. Make this a little bigger for you. Here's an example of one of the books. I'm a huge Green Goblin fan. Love me some John Romita. So this was one of the first ones I chased down. ASM 39.92 white pages. And that's the one qualifier I guess I didn't throw out there. It's not just a 9.2. It needs to have off-white white or white pages because I hate myself that much. It's funny to be laughed at by guys like the team from Dave and Adams when they hand you a 9.2 Amazing Spider-Man book from 1965, and you look at it, you hand it back to them and say it's not good enough. They're just like, what? It's an interesting spot to be in. But ideally, I put ASM 23 here. Like I said, huge Green Goblin guy. I'd love to get some of the Goblin books checked off, whether it's 23, 26, 27. Just want to get back on that horse and chip away at that a little bit. Number 7. It's Crime Patrol 16. This book is a big regret of mine. I had a chance to buy a copy or two 5 or 6 years ago for just a few $100s, like $300 to $500, and just didn't get it done for whatever reason. And this book, along with the next book and a lot of the early EC stuff, have just gone to the moon since then. So if I am able to find one of these, it's going to cost me a lot more than what it would have back then, naturally. But this is a great Johnny Craig cover. I actually kind of, I didn't do it any favors with how these images are stacked, but there's actually like a ghostly hand here that's turning on this light switch. That's why the lady looks so shocked. There's, anytime a disembodied body part starts turning on and off things in your home, it's okay to be scared. But this is the second Cryptotear, second Crypt Keeper, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I can't remember if he crossed over, but great book. One that I've been on the hunt for a while, as is the number 8 book, which is Crime Patrol 15, which is the first appearance of the Crypt Keeper. It's a book that really went nuts. It's getting better. I think some of the sales recently have brought out some more copies, which kind of helped the price level out to where it's more reasonable. Most of what I see when I do come across these books is people just have the I don't want to sell it price parked on eBay. So it's like 3.0 for $9,000. Well, thank you, but no. That's just unreasonable. But I grew up watching Tales from the Crypt, the heavily edited after SNL syndicated episodes. So I've loved Tales from the Crypt since I was a little kid. So being able to put that first appearance of the Crypt Keeper in my PC is high on my list. Number 9. So the second to last thing I'm looking for this year. This is something I didn't know that existed until, I don't know, the last couple months, I'd say at most. And I think it was actually a Bleeding Cool article of all places that tipped me off to it. But they're the TMNT, so the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle serial books. And essentially what they were little mini comics that came sealed in envelopes and were distributed in boxes of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cereal from back in the day. The interesting thing about these 3 mini books, you've got some first appearances in there. Like it's not just trash. There's actually things that happen. This number one right here, it's the first time in a comic form, a printed comic form, that Baxter Stockman has been mutated into the Fly. When we see him in the Mirage books, he's still just a scientist that makes the mousers. So it's got some significance, because when most people think of Baxter Stockman, whether it's from the video games or the cartoons, they think of this, and the toys, they think of this fly looking dude. And this is actually the first appearance of him in that form. So that's really cool. And then one of the other books is the first appearance of like Ray Fillet or Fillet Ray. They changed the name, but the Manta Ray looking dude from the TMNT universe. But this is just the kind of obscure, neat little thing that I think would be fun to collect. When you need to take one of those detours away from just regular everyday comic stuff, that's the kind of stuff that is fun to chase. And then last but not least, the number 10, or the primary book that I have on my want list for 2023, is the big dog, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, a first print. Been questing after this book for a while now, had some missteps, but it's coming. It's on a return trajectory from the moon, which is nice to see. We did have a copy sell, a CGC 8.0 sold for $18,000 yesterday on Heritage, which was strong. I was hoping it was going to stick closer like 15. So good for the seller. Not quite where I'd hoped to see that price at, but it is what it is. There's not a lot of them, and 8.0 is a pretty solid grade for that book. And if I have to settle for a 7.0 or a 7.5, it's not going to kill me. But that is something that's been on the list for a while. And I'm getting down to the point where there were some Mirage books. I'm like, I don't really want these. I think it's silly. I don't need those specifically. That referencing like #1 4th print, #1 5th print. At that point, who really cares? They're not the original cover, so that was kind of a turnoff for me. But now that I've got to where I have literally every other Mirage issued TMNT book from 1 to 62 of that original series, except for #1 4th, #1 5th, and the NYCC variant of #3, and then obviously the #1 first print I don't have. I'm like, it's kind of dumb to stop when that's all you have left. So I'm sure I'll be chasing those down too. So that will be a story for another day, though. So that's my 2023 want list. Let me know, what are you looking for this year? What's kind of the big book that's on your radar? What do you hope to find? And I hope you're able to track them down. And if you're not able to find it, hopefully you find something else that's cool before this year is over. We still got a lot of time, so hopefully it's a good one. All right, so that wraps up the want list portion of our conversation. So let's head back to the chat. All right. I'm not sure what book we were talking about there, Tartan Phantom, but there are some tough ones in there. Pope Cerebus says he wants to finish Jungle Action and Silver Surfer Volume 1. I did finish Silver Surfer Volume 1 a few years ago. That's a great run. Like, if you want to get into Silver Age Marvel, and you want something that has like a book that has some level of gravitas, but it's not going to be a decade-long slog to finish, there's only 18 issues of Silver Surfer Silver Surfer Volume 1. So it's a great series to chase down. And outside of like 1, 3, and 4, they're not that bad price-wise. They can be a little rough condition wise, and when they're in the square bound formatting, just those things, even as late as 68 and 69, they take a lot of abuse and are quick to fall apart. Circumstances found his Cap 100. You had one given to you. That's awesome, man. I'm I will have one. I cheap out on it. And yes, Jason, they do cost money. Gen X Geek, he was Team Darkwing Duck and Tailspin, just such great shows. I agree. Tartan Phantom, absolutely. I do have a War Against Crime 11. I don't have a 10 yet. It's also on the list. It's just one of those things that, you know, you take what comes your way. You can have your plans, but you got to be ready for what the world gives you. And yeah, if a 10 falls in my lap, I will gladly hold on to it. Scrolling here. I concur. Late Night Crime Patrol 15. It's not really like a scary cover like what we would later know as the horror covers and stuff, but just it's menacing, it's creepy. The fact the guy doesn't really have much of a face that you can see, it's good stuff. And I know Swag's in here throwing up the hearts for Crime Patrol. It's more suspenseful almost at that point, which is just great stuff. I love that kind of stuff. Joel's asking if I've seen the new Creepshow series. I haven't yet. I need to. Unfortunately, like my watch list is somewhere between 3 and 18 years long, so I'm a little behind. Kyle, I don't know. Didn't they pick one up? Maybe I'm wrong. Pope says, I'm like your ASM standard, except with Fantastic Four. That is also a pricey run to do that with. Although, like Spider-Man, once you get down a ways, it's not so bad, but still, it's not easy. Surfer 4 is a good cover, and I think you've gotten one or two of those from me over the years, Kyle, if I remember right. Joker Man is not laughing. 2 variant. All right. I don't know my variants very well, but I hope you're able to track one down there, Band Boy. Nuka Fan says the stream yesterday was very entertaining. Wants to know if I have any thoughts on the foreign market. For example, the fact that CGC sales aren't purchased in US dollar, or that aren't purchased in US dollars are calculated into GPA data. I don't really have any thoughts on that. I mean, just at face value, any kind of a currency conversion would be interesting. I would be curious to see how the raw data captures that, just to see if it, if it's captured in pounds per se. Obviously, and if GPA records that in dollars, it's not going to properly represent the actual price that was paid for the book due to the difference in the pound and the dollar. But that would be interesting. I don't know where we can get that data though, but that would be something to look at for sure. Tartan Phantom's looking for the first 3 issues of Space Western from Charlton in 52, 53. Some of those things pop up every once in a while, but not that regular. Let's see here. Comic Toby says he's met Pope Cerebus. So that's good. See, comic community, it's not that big. Half Moon's Picks says they only need Marvel Zombies 1 4th print. Is that the ASM50 swipe? Like the red one? It's like Zombie Spider-Man looking back over his shoulder. I bought all of those off the rack back in the day. I loved Soydom and his homage covers. Those were fantastic. So good luck. I hope you find it. It's a fun run to put together. Or let's see, Nuka Fan says, or foreign keys that have none on census but sell for 2K, etc. constantly. It's the Wild West, because I know specifically there's like that, I think it's Mexican Amazing Spider-Man where Peter and Gwen get married. That is just like a powerhouse book. It like completely diverges from the US storyline because, well, obviously she's not dead. So it's just kind of its own beast. And I don't know that there's any general idea of how many of them even exist. And every time one comes up, it's just gangbusters because I mean, if you're a Gwen fan, hell yeah, this is the book you want. It's like you'd much rather have that than, the girl dangling from the end of a web line with a broken neck. So I will never have one of those, not for lack of wanting, just because the amount of money those trade for, I'd rather dump into, something a little more traditional, I guess. But it would be super cool to have one of those. S Vaughn 82 says, "Hey everyone, loves the channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Had to drop in when he saw we were live. Thank you for stopping by. We're just kind of going through some things. We're in a hangout phase now. We did a little bit of business, but we're going to talk giveaway here coming up pretty soon. So stick around for that if you're still around." Half Moon Pick says they have ASM 51 to present all volumes and only needs 20 from 1 to 50. I got lucky in that I actually started. I started with what I had as a kid, but I knocked out the early issues and the keys fairly early on. So by the time I was wrapping up, like the last 20 issues I needed were from what I called the dark times of Spider-Man, or of Amazing Spider-Man, from like 150 to 238, or 237, where basically not much happened, relatively speaking. Now, of course, since I used to make claims like that, Black Cat's blown up, Madam Web's blown up, Calypso's blown up. There is one of the best Spider-Man stories ever, and nothing can stop the Juggernaut in that run. But for the most part, it was just kind of a blah period. And that was nice to be able to finish the run chasing $5 to $10 books as opposed to $3,000 to $5,000 books. But good luck to you on that. It's a fun set to complete. When you finally get that last one, it's a moment. All right, let's see. Ganjabar's Medium says, "Hey, they just bought a first appearance of Poison Ivy, so Bat 181. Love it much. Is it possible to have the cover stapled back on if they send it to someone?" I don't believe. You can staple it back on, but it's just a defect. Like it's called staples added after manufacture, or additional staples added. So it's actually, like I said, an extra defect. Now, depending on what happened, how it was detached, if there's still paper, like the front and back cover is still connected between the staple holes, like, I'm honestly, for that to have happened, somebody would have had to have removed the staples and then taken the cover off, which I'm assuming is highly unlikely. There's really not any way to do that without it being, additional damage to the book. Now, if it's like if you had the opposite problem, it was a centerfold. I've heard of people that will take and like move the prongs of a staple to hold the centerfold in, so it's technically not detached. But you got to be careful with that because you can get dinged for tampering, or however they want to address that. Okay, Fourth Prince Hulk, gotcha. Would you get rid of thousands of dollars of little books, added 50%, that's 5 auctions, and this down economy? So basically, are you talking, would you wholesale out a bunch of stuff and pour that into bigger books? Yeah, sure. That's kind of my general plan at any given time, not just with a down economy, but especially depending on how you acquired the low money books, the small dollar books. If you can buy a collection at 40, 50 cents a book, $1 a book, and flip that into, $1.50 or $2 a book, or, hell, even, 40, 50 bucks a long box. At that point, yeah, why deal with the bulk? All it does is eat up space. When you, and this may be Rich as I'm getting ready to talk about buying a collection as big as the one I just did, but there comes a point where the space the books occupy is worth more than the books themselves. And at that point, you've got to cut some stuff loose just to give yourself room to breathe. And then you get to play the fun game of once you get some of that crap out of the way, then you can start getting back into things that you want to get through. And hopefully, as you do that, you're finding things that were not worth pulling or not worth really giving much attention to when they were put there. And now that you can get there, get back to them again, now they're a thing. And it's, nothing better than finding a key in stuff that you thought was junk that you'd already kind of written off. That's as good as finding, like a $20 bill in an old wallet or something. Mike says he's going for a 181. It's a good book. It's heading the right direction. It's as good a time as any in the last couple of years to have that on your list. So good luck to you. Got Dude JR Ryan, Junior Ryan. I don't know. Sorry for slaughtering your name there. Saying what's up. We're just talking some comics. Thanks for stopping by. Danilo says he has a full run of 1 through 700 and never slabs them. Oh yeah. The smell of vintage paper and ink. Same. So he has the same with Avengers, FF, and Daredevil. Very nice. One of the things Mrs. CoMo makes fun of me for is I have my Silver Age Marvel runs in drawer boxes. So if you pull out a drawer box and then you shove it back in, it's air pressure, right? So it accelerates the air that pushes out of that box, and that box smells like delicious old acidic paper. And it's like huffing gas. You just push the box and breathe deep and just enjoy life for a moment. But yeah, one of my favorite smells. All right. Catching up here. I think we're about there. Half Moons says they have 400 graded CGC books on cover price. Ooh. Graded books aren't bad. I don't know who they get their values from. But a lot of those online places, I don't trust a lot of the values from. But now if that's cover price and it's affiliated with like Go Collect or GPA or something like that, where it's valuing the books based off actual sales, that's pretty good. Is it worth a trade for one AF-15 or ASM-1? The problem you're going to run into there is finding somebody who's willing to take 400 books for one book. Honestly, what you may need to do with that is you may need to condense your 200 books into, 10 books. Take those 10 books and condense those into 5 books, then take those 5 and condense those into 2 or 3. And at that point, then you might be able to make a play for some of those bigger books. But I know, like, even from firsthand experience, I rolled into, if you check my Instagram, I posted a picture after the show of everything me and my buddy Bob, who I went to C2E2 with, rolled in to the show with, looking to trade, like for trade fodder and stuff. At the time, I want to say there was like $75,000 worth of books on us. And then we had cash on top of that. And it's just like, we're not easy to kidnap, but it might have been worth the effort if somebody tried it at that particular show. But even trading like 181s and giant size X-Men 1s, and I have a 9.82 Madracula 1, trying to trade into major keys, kind of like you're talking about with that kind of stuff, just I wasn't getting anywhere. And the worst part is a lot of the prices that were on the books were 20% over FMV, and then they were wanting additional money on top of their marked value for trade credit. So essentially I was at a point where they were wanting half in cash and then an extra 20% on top of their already 20% high price to trade. And I'm fine. I know how the game's played. The dealer has to win because they're the one assuming the additional risk with taking on more books or, different books. But there's a difference between them winning and, them just absolutely taking advantage of the situation. And I get that, I get it. I just, let me choose my words carefully here. The top tier dealer is a different beast. Okay. They don't just need to win. You need to lose and they need to win, if that makes sense. You both can't win a little bit. Like, I was talking to one of the biggest dealers in the country. They have a very high dollar operation on their website. They set up at all the biggest shows. They have amazing books. And I feel sorry for anybody who sells or trades their books to them, because every time I talk to these guys, the first thing they say to me is, you are not going to like what I'm going to offer you for whatever you have. They won't even know what the hell I'm going to show them. And that's what they come out with, which tells me from my experience, they're offering less than half for Grail level keys. And that's just not right, in my opinion. And I think if you start the conversation by basically telling somebody, I'll do business with you, but I got to screw you for us to do business, I don't think that's cool. And it just kills me that that's the way it is. But, I see Bueller hitting the chat here, and maybe it was just the universe again lining up where I feel I needed to say it is what it is. But yeah. So thanks, Bueller, for stopping by. I watched your video at 2:00 in the morning this morning, and it held my attention with almost no. I was about to pass out, and then I watched the video, and then I couldn't sleep for a couple hours because I guess it just amped me up. But thank you for stopping by. Glad to see you. Comic Toby says he needs a Vampirella first appearance to impress the ladies. Well, I do know that a good friend of the channel, Ryan with Automatic Comics, just picked up a good run of Vampirella with a #1 in it. So might keep an eye on his socials or hit him up to see. I'm not sure what his plans are, but as cool as Vampy 1 is, I don't know that's going to make his keeper list, because I've tried to tell him you can own more than 50 comics at any time, but he doesn't like to do that. Half Moons, circling back, isn't it easier to sell? It can be, but it also takes a lot longer sometimes. Like if you have one big boy book and you're in the right places, like if you're setting up at C2E2, NYCC, SDCC, you have good name recognition and are known as being a reputable dealer, you can move stuff online with internet sales and internet sellers that have really kind of built good followings and are now considered to be reputable. It's easier to sell those big books now than ever. You send a couple of snapshots of them to somebody like Grails or Elite Comics 101 or hell, you even put it on My Slabs or any of the other, myriad of places you can sell and trade comics through. It's as easy now to move big stuff as really it ever has been, just because you can do it from the couch, and that's great. But what the dealer at that point would be taking on is just a ton of additional risk. Because in the amount of time it takes them to sell all 400 of those books to make themselves whole, or even if whole is, 20% more than the value of the book they traded you, that's a lot more opportunity, a lot more layering of risk, because you then have 400 different opportunities for books to decrease in value. And every time one of those 400 decreases in value, it chips away at what, your investment was, or your potential profit margin is. And it's a lot more risk. I know if somebody wanted to trade me 400 slabs, I would be very, very cautious about it. I think that's probably the most honest way I could put that. JR says he would never sell to a dealer. I'd rather sell to the community. I'm sorry. It's just the way the world is. You've got to, like, I'm a dealer. I don't think that's shocking to anybody. I set up at shows and conventions, and that's kind of what feeds the beast most of the time here and keeps CoMo going is those sales. And I mean, just straight up, there's not much I can pay more than 75% of FMV for, just because the overhead. I'll be honest, like, I've got Kansas City coming up. My booth fee was almost $1,100 for one corner booth, and that doesn't count hotel room, which a hotel for, I think we're there 3 nights between setup and all the nights of the shows. So that was another $700 or $800. So I'm almost $2,000 in the hole before I even set foot in the building. And I know it's not a pity party or anything, but that's just the reality of being a vendor. And that's Kansas City, Missouri. Now you talk about like C2E2, you talk about NYCC, you talk about SDCC, where the crappiest hotel room you can possibly walk to from the convention center is $500 a night. And, it's just, there's a lot of things that add up and reasons why, dealers oftentimes need to double their money with whatever they pay for books. Now, obviously, keys, you can lean in more, but for the most part, just kind of the age-old rule of thumb, you got to be able to double your money on whatever you pay out for a collection. Nuka says, give your 41K collection to Bryce for 60% of FMV, then you can buy a low-grade AF-15. Bry runs crazy volume. He does a really good job over there, and that's not a terrible suggestion. I don't know what his percentage is or anything like that. I don't know how legit that was, if that was meant to be facetious or whatever, but for that kind of volume, somebody like Bry would be a great place to look into. You searching for a finder's fee there, Nuka? Did you see that video? I know what's happening here. But no, that is a good point. Steve asked if I had a website or an eBay store so they can look at what I have for sale. I do, actually. Let me see here. Let me put it in the chat. I think that should get you there. The website's just comocomicbooks.com. And /store, I think, should get you to the store. I just picked up a consignment collection. Really weird story. I don't want to get into it online. But I've bought some of the books that were in the collection. It all came out of one place, and now there's like 4 or 5 different people that split it up. And I bought parts from 2 people. I've got a consignment from another person that had some of the books. It's just pretty wild, but I do have some of the books from the consignment that are up on the website. Just sold a House of Secrets 92. If you saw that on my Instagram last week, sold a nice JIM annual 1 that was out of there, and I think an X-Men 50. But up on the website, there's some great Batman stuff up right now. I think there's a Bat 155, which is or 157, whatever the first Silver Age Penguin is up there. There's a Bat 232 if you're a Ra's al Ghul fan. 227 I just posted, which is that great Detective Comics 31 cover swipe. That's still there. And there's some great Marvel stuff up there too. So yeah, if you're interested, you can check that stuff out. Top 3 Ingalls covers. All right, I will try and scrape this together, and then we'll dive into the next part of our itinerary, which I think you guys will be excited about. Ingalls covers, I like the Old Witch cover, Haunt 17. That was another book I upgraded this spring at that EC auction I was talking about. The zombie cover is 18 or 19, whatever it is, with the 3 zombies. I really like that. And I know it's not one of kind of the often talked about ones, but the Haunt 28, which is just that casket that's kind of silhouetted by this ominous looking like sunset or whatever. I really like that one. But yeah, Ingalls for me, I think I like his interior stuff more than a lot of his cover work. And he's kind of maybe a paradox is the best way to describe it. There's times I look at his work and I feel like it's so hyper detailed that it's just, you get lost in it. And there are other times I work at pieces of his art, and it's like there's so little detail, you kind of get lost in it. I don't know. It's a shame that he left the industry after EC went down, because I think he really could have done some more great work in the comics industry. But I understand, just wanting to go do something else. All right. So let's get back to business right quick. Thanks everybody for hanging out in the chat. And we'll go through and we'll do some more. But for the moment, we have some business to discuss. We got to talk about a 10K subscriber giveaway. It's going to be a first for the channel. I've never done a giveaway before. And I've talked to some other creators, kind of got some ideas about how they handled it, and I think I've got a pretty good plan. But the thing that everybody wants to know, it's like, well, what are you giving away, right? So that's probably the best place to start. So I've got 5 presents lined up. Presents, you can tell it was just the holidays, right? 5 items queued up for the giveaway. So what my intentions are. Well, hell, let's talk about the items first. We can talk about the rules here in a minute. First up, I've got one of these Hex X Jim Lee collector backpacks, which if you remember from, I don't know, it's probably year 1 of the channel. I did some reviews of these backpacks when they first came out. That's actually the original standard backpack that I picked up to do those reviews. So I've been holding on to it for a while. I actually used the collector series one because it's black and gold. So, it's on brand. So that's the one I use. But I love my bag, my collector series bag. I use it all the time. So like if you saw me at Chicago, I probably had it on. If you see me running around, even, just shopping at LCSs, if we do a road trip and load up and go hit a bunch of LCSs, I always have that. You can keep your price guide in there, or, if you're somebody who does that. But I like it because I can keep slabs that I want to trade possibly in there. I also use one of like the BCW store folios. We like the magazine size ones because we do a lot of buying like gold and pre-code horse stuff that oftentimes we'll put in like a silver gold mylar, which is too big to go in the standard store folio. So we use the mag size store folios, and you can slide that right in between the 2 pouches that hold the 6 slabs. Now it doesn't fit if you've got 6 slabs in there, but if you've got 3 for sure, 4 or 5, you can get away with it. It's pretty straightforward. But Hex X Jim Lee collector's backpack, that's kind of the what I envision being the main prize, the bigger item. But hopefully whoever wins that will enjoy it as much as I enjoy mine. Next up is a CoMo comic books hat, much like this one, only it won't be faded and dirty like the one I wear around all the time. Be a brand new shiny example of this very hat. So that's another option. Then we've got some books. I actually have them here with me. So just the week before last, I went and I got a call from a guy. He's like, hey, I got some books. And I wound up buying a couple of them. And the Spider-Woman 1 was one of them. It's definitely not, it's not a book I'd consider getting graded, but it's just a solid, example. It's collectible, a great just copy to slide into your collection for $0 if you so choose. Another book that was there that I picked up was this Iron Man 100. Again, these are mid-ish grade copies. Still very collectible, great readers, classic covers. I kind of liked the thought of the 100 to kind of play into the 10K thing with the Iron Man book. And maybe it's silly, but in my mind, it made sense. But I run on very little sleep sometimes, so I may be making poor decisions. Who knows? And then last but not least, this is a Daredevil 179, just classic Frank Miller, Elektra before she gets dead. Great cover. And this is actually a bit of a pay it forward. I won this, I believe, from Golden Age Guru on one of his Whatnot giveaways. And I'm just like, well, all right, I'll just pay it forward. We'll hook somebody up here in the CoMo community with that Guru provided giveaway. So hopefully somebody will enjoy that. So that's the items for the giveaway. Backpack, hat, a couple comics to choose from. Hopefully, I thought about adding a DC book, but I don't know. I like these better. So sorry if anybody would have preferred a DC option, but we'll be okay. Rules for the 10K giveaway. First up, it's a 10,000 subscriber giveaway. So what's the first rule? You got to subscribe to the channel to be eligible to win the 10K sub giveaway. Beyond that, just your basic stuff. Like the video, make sure to drop a comment on it, because how I'm going to select the winners, I'm going to do like some sort of random comment selector, and that's how I'm going to be able to, pick the winner, right? So if you don't comment on the video, you won't be eligible to win the prize. And as the note says, when I do hit 10,000 subscribers, whenever that does happen, at that point in time, I'll put out the video and it'll be labeled like 10K subscriber video. I'll wordsmith it between now and then. It'll actually make sense. You'll know it when it comes up, and I'll make it very clear that that's the video you need to comment in and like, and make sure you're subbed to the channel to be eligible for the giveaways at that point. Last kind of caveat here, I am going to be paying the shipping on this, and apologies to all of our international viewers, but this will be a US only giveaway. So if you're outside the US, apologies. Thank you for your support, but I do need to keep it within reason on how much the shipping will cost on some of this stuff. And like the backpack, it's not small. It goes in a pretty big box. It doesn't weigh much, but it's awkward. Next up, just some more details about how we're going to manage this. I'm going to draw 5 winners. Each winner in whatever order. So the first person drawn will get first pick, the second person will get second pick, so on and so forth. Each winner will have their choice of whatever the remaining pricers are. So if you're the first person drawn, you get to pick from all 5 items that are available. And then unfortunately for the last person, the 5th person who gets picked, you get what's left. Sometimes that works out though. We've had 3 dogs in our life, and 2 of them we just got what was left, and they were some of the best dogs we've ever had. So it works out sometimes. Don't be worried about that. Last thing here, I am going to pull a couple of alternates just in case there's some random reason why I'm not able to establish communication with one of the first 5 people who are drawn. So basically, if I reach out to you and I don't hear from you within 3 days, 4 days, something like that, just in the just so we can keep the ball rolling, we don't get bogged down and kind of gum up the whole works. If you don't respond in a timely manner, we will move on to one of the alternates just to get the process moving along. So yeah, that's our 10K giveaway. So I think that's going to be a good time. It's some interesting items in there. Hopefully it's some items that have an appeal here in the community. I know I could go on for days about the backpack. I think it's not perfect, but it's so much better than some of the things I've been trying to make work as a comic convention or a comic book bag. It's real nice. So hopefully whoever winds up with that one will enjoy it. All right. So the last thing we've got to talk about is the 17K collection preview. But before we get to that, let's catch up with the chat. Vinny says hello. Hello, Vinny. Thanks for coming by. Steve says very nice. He liked the prizes. I'm guessing there. Dude, J.R. Ryan also said nice video and prizes. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's hopefully everybody enjoys it. Like I said, first giveaway, didn't really know what to pick. So we're shooting from the hip here. Now, the 17K collection preview. What to say about that? And again, I'm going to keep it fairly high level here. I don't want to get too ahead of myself as far as revealing stuff, because I am going to go ahead and do an actual video about this collection. But to just kind of let everybody know what the deal is, I got a call. I think it was an email or a call back in November, and collectors like, I'm in St. Louis area, just want to sell my comics. Okay, no big deal. So we set up a call and we got to talking, and it was just one of those things. And the thing that shocked me was he's like, yeah, it's like 115, 117 boxes. Like, excuse me? Most of the time when I buy a collection, let's see, I bought an 8 long box collection in May. I bought a 12 long box collection like July. That's more normal, anywhere from 1 to 2 to 4 to 12. That's kind of what I'm accustomed to. And yeah, these were short and mag boxes, but there were 117 of them. It was insane. I rented a 4x8 U-Haul trailer, and that thing was full front to back, side to side, and top to bottom. And I had more boxes in the bed of my truck, more boxes in the back of my truck. It was insane. My warehouse is crammed full, and it took us, between sicknesses, holidays, and just everything, it took us about 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks to even get to the point where we got through everything. Because when I bought it, we didn't have time to look through every box. We just kind of went through, and it's like, okay, these are the high points of what was supposed to be in the collection. They're there. Awesome. Let's go. I had no idea what all I bought. We finally got through everything. And what we were doing when we went through it the first time, we were just sorting from, we split out all the horror books, because there was a lot of like modern horror. Split those out, split out Marvel, split out DC, and split out Independence. So basically anything that wasn't the big two went in that. That was just kind of our rough first pass. Anything that was like a better book, like a key or a more valuable book, we tried to pull those out. It was me, my buddy Bob, who you'll see with us on the road a lot, and Mrs. CoMo there. So we were just turning and burning. I'm sure as I go back through it, I'll find things that we just overlooked because we were trying to get through stuff. But it's fantastic. It's a ton of books, but there's not anything like I can't sell 2 books and have all the money back. I can't sell 3 books and have all the money back, but it was a really good value. The seller, he goes by Midwest Guy. He had his price, and I'm not gonna lie, his price made me a little bit nervous just for that reason that I couldn't just take a handful or 2 handfuls of books and get all my money back for sure. Part of that's my fault because I'm keeping some of it, and some of the better stuff I'm keeping, but it was a fair price. He held firm in the negotiation, and that's what I wound up paying him. And now that I've actually been able to go through and see what all was in there, I think it was a pretty fair price that he was asking. Just kind of shooting from the hip in the moment where I didn't know is kind of what made me uneasy. But first off, I'll show you these big awkward things. This was in there, 9.4 TMNT number 1. Let me make this bigger. 3rd printing, naturally. First and seconds are pretty hard to come by, but that was cool to find. And that was one of the things that caught my attention right off the bat. He's like, I got Turtles 1 through 4, and also Wrath number 1 in a 9.4. So Raphael 1 is actually a book that I kind of missed the boat on. And if you remember, in late 2020 and 2021, that thing was going to the moon. I mean, it was just on a rocket going out of the atmosphere. So I was really happy to finally get a copy of that because I didn't have one. And what's ultimately happening with those TMNT books, I'm flipping my copies out. So I have raw copies. They're pretty nice raw copies of basically everything that came in. So 3rd print number 1, 1st print 2 through 4. I think I flipped my number 5 out as well. And then I'm keeping the RAF. So, that's CoMo started as a hobby, and basically the hobby to help build my collection kind of snowballed, and we're here today. So that was kind of the mission, was to sell books to make my collection better, and it continues. Now it just happens at a little bigger scale than it used to. So those turtle books were cool. And like I mentioned, the seller was a horror fan. So there's a lot of like small press horror stuff, but then there were also things like Sandman 1 through 8 were in there. Really nice copies. This next book, Mrs. CoMo actually found. I'd found part of this run and it stopped. And I'm like, well, that kind of stinks. I thought I was going to miss out on this book. And then as she was going through some boxes, she came across where the run picked up. And that is this Swamp Thing 37. Just absolutely gorgeous copy. So, first John Constantine, not a bad thing to pull. And it was just, like I said, I thought the run had stopped and just, it wasn't going to be there. So anytime you're going through and you can find a $400 book you didn't expect to be in a collection, that's a good moment. Apologies for the bag. I haven't got this one rebagged yet. It's in an old poly, but, a nice Secret Wars 8. I never hate finding one of these. It's, it's just about as reliable of a book as you can come across. It's got such a wide appeal. It's not a book you got to try to sell. Little Del Auto action up in here. Focus. Vengeance number 1. A little late to the party on this one, of course. It peaked back before Multiverse of Madness came out, but I've never had one before, so kind of excited to have that. And those Del Auto covers are gorgeous. I like some of the later covers better. They, of course, don't have the value that one does, but I wasn't mad at finding it. Next up, and again, apologies for the bag on this one as well, a full bore Batman Beyond #1. And this is probably, outside of the Turtle books, this last book I'll show just kind of as a preview of the 17K collection. This is probably the most valuable single raw issue that was in there. Walking Dead #1, and this is a cherry copy. It needs to be slapped, in all honesty. I have a 9.4. Mine's got the Black Mature Readers label on it. But this thing could so easily make a 9.8. It needs to be slabbed. That's all there is to it. That's only the second Walking Dead one I've ever owned. The first being my PC copy. So the run of Walking Dead that was in there, I think, is 1 through 167. So it's not a complete run. It stopped about a year and change shy, but all the hitters are in there. So that was exciting to see. And there's just, I can just read through some of the other things that are in there. There's a Dark Knight set, Fables 1 through 5. There's so much great stuff. There's boxes, I think is probably the easiest way to put it, of 10 to 20 and 40 and $50 books. There were a couple of the second printing of the first appearance of Anti-Venom was in there, which was a issue I'd missed in my ASM run. I have the first print, but I didn't have the second print where he was on the cover. So I was able to add that to my collection. Of course, the Evil Ernie books, the Men in Black series. So just tons of great stuff. And we'll get into some more of that when we actually sit down and get that video made. But for now, let's dive into the chat one last time, and then we'll probably wrap this up. See, I said I was going to go an hour. We're already an hour and 52 or 42. Numbers are hard. Empire Comics popped in, said, "Hey, what's up? How are you? Thank you for popping by. Glad you could make it." Wayne says he wants to thank me in advance for reaching 10K. Says I always have the greatest content. I greatly appreciate that. I try. I think there's a lot of great creators out there in the space. So it's humbling anytime I'm told that, because I know I don't always feel that way just because of the quality of some of the other guys that are out here doing the same thing with me. So it's always nice to hear people say that, but I'm just happy to be out here, talking about comics. That's what this started out as for me. It was my outlet to still talk about comics when, kind of my LCS change, when we lost my buddy and all that, it wasn't, you can never go back home. Right. So that's where this is taken me. And I'm glad that y'all are here with me on this journey. Comment, giveaways US only. Yes. Very sorry. Maybe one day, if international shipping comes back out of the clouds, we'll be able to broaden that out a little bit. But for now, US only. I agree. Comic Toby's saying it's quality over quantity. Absolutely. Somebody in the chat wanted that TMNT. Well, that's mine. That's mine now. I do have the raw copies, so I'm going to be selling. I'll have those at Kansas City. That's something I'm actually looking forward to, because Eastman's going to be there, and it's going to be the first show that I can set up at. I always try and keep a TMNT 1 third print on my wall. Just it's a what the heck do I always call it? It's a scroll stopper. People will just be walking through the show, minding their own business, doing their thing. They see that book and they stop. What printing is that? And at that point, that's my end. At that point, where we're engaging, we're talking, okay, that's a third print. You don't want a third print. You want a first or a second print at the third print price, but that's not what it is. But now I can ask you what else you're looking for. And that's how the game is played. There's some inside baseball for you. But I'm looking forward to be able to mass out and actually have like turtles 1 through 5 on my wall for the first time at a show. So that, growing up being the target demographic for TMNT, that's just something that is going to be a cool moment for me. Scrolling through, Kevin asks what I think about X-Men 10. That's Kazar, right? I like Kazar. Honestly, it's one of those books. I'm just making sure that I'm not going to blab about the wrong book here. It's one of those books that I liked a lot year and a half ago. But now just kind of the general trend of the market, the way things are at, I've pulled most of my chips back to where I'm cautious about most things, right? Just the changes in the market in the last couple of years. It used to be you could just throw a dart at the wall and you'd hit the bullseye. These days, you can stick a dart in the bullseye and still miss, it seems like. There's just so much speculation that's been built in. There was so much money that poured in to the hobby that wasn't sustainable, and it's just not there now. So you got people, that are underwater. I like it, but I think there are things I would put money into besides it right now, if that makes sense. I don't think it's a bad move. It's a riskier move than something like I'd take a 12 or a 14 over 10 at this point. Both excellent red background covers, by the way. Hey, Vancouver Comic Junkie, thanks for stopping by. Glad to see you. Bobby, I was talking about your book earlier. You'll have to check the replay, but the Maximum Carnage made my top 10 books of 2022. So thanks for stopping by, sir. I honestly, there had to be some Valiant in there. I know there's not a ton of it, but some. Circumstances still hanging around. Thanks for sticking with me, sir. Hey, thank you. If you, once we hit 10K, the hat is, well, not this one, but a hat like this is one of the prizes. There you go. Thank you, Larry. Repping Missouri. Trying to. Better than our football team. You should have seen the awful things Circumstances put in the chat earlier. It was awful. All right. Well, I think it's about time to land the plane, everybody. I'm only almost double the amount of time I said I was going to be, but you guys know how I run. Kind of looking forward to the rest of the weekend. We don't have to go to work tomorrow, so that's exciting. Got some family stuff going on as well, so fun things, not bad things. So I think I'm going to call it a night. I want to thank everybody for hanging out in the chat and just being here with me for the last hour and 50 minutes, and hopefully you have a great rest of your evening, the rest of your weekend. And if you got to go to work tomorrow, hang in there. But I am looking forward to my 4-day work week this time around. I've got closing thoughts here. Just before we hopped on, I finished recording the top 10 comics on a $20 budget for winter of 2023. So I'm going to edit that tonight, tomorrow, sometime, probably either get it out tomorrow or Tuesday, most likely. So I got that coming on. We're going to be talking top 10 comics to invest in before it's too late for the winter coming up next. So it's about time to start looking at spring. But with that, everybody, be well. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, collect responsibly. And I'll see you in the next one.